Who you are, what your opportunities are, what your challenges are. So who would like to go first? I will pass. I think both of them are working. Hello? No. There you go.
Thank you. So the Mercy team over there, so say hi everyone. So that's Nessie and Campus. All right, cool. So my name is Mercy and I love animals. I grew up chasing animals around the farm and I'm 28 years old now. And I'm actually an agrovit, which is a really big dream come true. I'm also married. My husband works in the local government office. I have a mother-in-law who thinks that there's a better opportunity in the city, so those are one of my challenges. Currently, there is a challenge in our neighborhood, although I've been supporting everyone with the agrovit services, but milk output is down and livestock prices have dropped. So clearly experiencing the effects of climate change where I am. I also do have additional income opportunities that I've been working towards. So raising chickens and selling eggs, but I'm also wondering what I can do. I do believe I'm tech savvy and I've been using my smartphone to figure out if there are digital service providers who are offering opportunities to hire agrovits nearby. I don't have much time because school fees are due soon. Fortunately, I've been saving in a SACCO and at the Women's Community Cooperative, so I'm fine for now. But what I really do need is opportunities for income next year. So that's my story. I'm looking for ways to broaden my skill set that I already have in order to increase my incomes. My challenges are really effects of climate change and the recognition that there is this assumption that if we go to the urban city, I'll probably be able to make more income than I do currently at the moment. And I need a long-term plan to be able to pay school fees, but also just generally increase my income. So that's our team. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much, Mercy. Okay, I think this one works now too. Please, Rose.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Rose. My team in the corner back there is also Rose with me. But I am 57 years old. I know I don't look it, but I often spend time at my husband's stand in the local village, and I get to know so many people. I've lived in this village my whole life, so I know many of my cousins, and we've been encountering a ton of drought. So actually recently, some members of my community told me about the smart farm systems, and they recommended a drought-resistant seed. The yield in my field has grown rapidly, and I don't actually just farm maize, I also have poultry, and overall, because of this drought-resistant seed, I now need access to larger markets. And what I'm realizing is this is an application I want to continue using. Unfortunately, it's only available on a smartphone, and my husband only has a feature phone. So we're trying to weigh the challenge of what would it look like to buy a smartphone. Is that an investment we can make? But also, where do I even start? Where can I go to buy a smartphone in my community? And just some opportunities we started to observe is the fact that I am so interconnected in my community. What could it look like to start pulling other cousins, people that I know, other women, onto this application and maybe acting as someone at the local stand to say, hi, I've been using this application, do you want to join in as well? But seeing some challenges even of the fact that it's only accessible via smartphone. What could it look like to expand channels to even include a feature phone? Yeah, I think that there's more to say, of course, but big opportunity just being market access, transportation, access to funds, and information to be able to even continue using the app.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Rose. Okay, all right, so now we'll go onto the other side. We have the demand side, and now we'll go more onto the supply side and see who our actors are. So would anybody represent, how many Chris's do we have? 2 Chris's. Okay, who wants to be lead Chris? And then the other Chris will just top up. All right, go ahead. Go for it, Chris. Tell us who you are and what your opportunities and challenges are.
Okay, thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm 35 years old, Chris. I'm the founder of Next Gen. That's my team over there. Hi, everyone. Thank you. Okay, so it's been an interesting journey so far for Next Gen AgTech, and It's an exciting startup. We leverage digital technology to provide services to smallholder farmers. We have a lot of data already on them and their livestock and crop and everything they're growing. And we offer a range of digital financial services, including loans for quality seeds and fertilizer. And because we are leveraging technology, we knew that we're going to need, I knew from the beginning that I was going to need a pool of agents rolling out agent networks to serve the smallholder farmers. So I've recruited experienced, well-respected older men within our society as next-gen agents. And these guys are opening doors in the rural areas where we want to expand. They are available in these locations. They're getting the farmers to turn out for our training days on latest seeds, fertilizers, tractors, and they also help to sell our services. We also have offtake agreements with other large agribusinesses who buy from our smallholder farmers. So that means we're also connecting them to the market. We want the farmers to always accept digital payments for these transactions, but they are not so interested. And they say it's too expensive since most of the expenses are in cash. They always say things are too expensive. So we're trying to get them to adopt digital payment. Well, we are very excited about what Jen is doing and what we've been able to achieve in this short time. But a challenge is we are not able to serve as many women as we want to serve. Some women sign up for the next gen services, but we see that they never use them. And women don't even come for our training days, even though they are free. We don't see them at these free training days. So we see a huge potential for us as next gen to serve rural women. Our investors are also giving us a lot of pressure to grow. So we're wondering what is wrong. I mean, why don't rural women use our very great and valuable services? What is happening? What is wrong? We're not able to find these answers in the data. I've searched everywhere in the data. I'm not able to get that. I've recorded, customer agenda at sign up. We do that all the time, but not in any of the interactions or transactions that follow. Maybe that's one of the mistakes. We're not sure. And my team over there, they keep saying that we should stick to mass market approach and let rural women catch up. But I don't think so. So maybe it's time to call, people like you, in the community. Probably we could get some advice and have some of them partner with us. Chris, do you have any other?
Chris, too.
Chris 1, that was quite comprehensive. Probably to just introduce you to the broader Chris 2 team right there. Very excited. We think we are the next big thing, next gen. There we go.
Very good. I'd like to ask, thank you so much. I'd like to ask how many Ednas we have in the room. Just one Edna. Okay, go for it, Edna.
Well, all of this table, we're all Edna, right? So we're all in this together. And I think that Edna, we're going to be the magic glue linchpin that helps the Chris's and Tonys, we've not heard from you yet, but connect with Rose and with Mercy in the field. So my name's Edna. I'm 48 years old, and I'm brought up in rural Ethiopia, lived there all my life, and I'm now managing director of Women's Community Cooperative, which is WCC. We've been operating here for many years, and over half the women in our community are members of this cooperative. They come together to sell agricultural produce and to save money. We've been trying to figure out how to link them to better inputs in markets, but we often don't have the resources that are needed to be able to do this. And we're really interested in working with partners to be able to support that. We know that our members want more support. They want more than just information, although they do appreciate the information as well. And we really provide holistic support. So they come along for the training, we provide food, they bring their children, there's childcare. We really provide kind of a whole community support. Our members are incredibly busy, and the advice I get from my team, Chris, is to ignore NextGen because they don't think it's for them. But I've heard from a friend in the capital that actually they're looking to set up agent networks in my community. So I think we should talk with our teams and try and figure out a way to bring the teams together for some kind of interaction. We've also done a bit of partnership conversations with Reliable Commercial Bank, but we find that they've been a really tough partner to work with because they always want more data, and our team find it hard to get that amount of data. So we're having sort of struggles on the bank side thinking about providing data, and then on the next gen side, we're just trying to figure out whether or not it's worth the investment in that partnership.
Thank you very much. Okay, how many Tonys do we have in the room? 2 Tonys. Who wants to go? Who wants to be Tony 1 and who wants to be Tony 2?
Good morning. Thanks, and Tony 1 is here. I want to speak about Reliable Commercial Bank, who's been around forever. As the text says, 58 years as a manager in the bank. Traditionally, we've been serving an urban clientele, but we want to branch out into the rural areas and primarily looking at the women who are in climate risk-prone areas because of climate change. There's not reliable rainfall where they are, but there's something that we're doing, which is introducing new products and services around mobile banking and agency banking. One of the areas that we're seeing as an opportunity for us is recruiting the women in the rural areas to be our agents. On top of that is that we want to extend our advisory services to these rural women beyond just financial services into climate change and what it does for them. But on top of that is leverage some of the existing players in the market. My neighbor here, Next Gen AgTech, there is a lot of data that they have, but they are unwilling to be able to share that with us for us to leverage and grow in the markets that we want to target. But there is an opportunity that they bring on board, which is around the mobile phone. If these women in the rural areas get access to mobile phones, then as a bank, we can be able to use that to grow our data profiles and serve our customers better. How we're going to do that is that introducing new products around climate resilience, insurance, microinsurance. For these farmers, because of the adverse effects of climate change, they can be able to get insurance based on their crop in the farm. But beyond that is, the place of the little cooperatives in the village, where we can work closely with them. They have an existing partnership with these women in the rural areas. We can be able to leverage our services and our offerings to be able to grow much more in a resilient manner. I think that captures it from my group.
Thank you, Tony 1. Tony 2.
Yeah, hi everyone. Tony 2 here with my team. Give us a wave. So Tony 1 has captured a lot of what we're thinking. And so Reliable is an industry leader, but a very traditional bank. So Tony 2 and the team gets a lot of headaches from leadership because they know that women are mostly affected by climate change. And so they want to avoid them at all costs because that is such a high risk area. But our team can see the opportunity there. And so we have a lot of conversation with the risk management team, and they say, if you want to serve women, give us data on them. And so we look at ourselves and say, where is this data? We don't have this data. And we've heard of someone called NextGen, and we hear that they are collecting data, but they are just not having conversations with us. And our team sees this as competition. But there are people who say maybe they could be partners instead of the competition, but we don't know how to approach them yet. And then also, as mentioned by 21, we are thinking women are in circles, they're in chamas. Maybe we can use that as an entry point. But how do we even get there? How do we start talking to them? Are they even ready for it? So we clearly want to serve women, but we're a bit confused about how to reach them, how to get data, and leadership says that they'll only support us if we can show these 2 things. So we'd like to have conversations with everyone and see how we can get these women on the team, because we believe that they are the future. Yeah.
Love it. Thank you very much, everyone, for presenting your positions. We have about 10 minutes left, and what I'd like to do is have a little bit of discussion here, but I'd also like our expert panel out there to be able to give you some advice. But first, we'll go back to our women farmers. So you've heard all of this. You've heard what their vision is. You've heard what their challenges are. What do you have to say to these providers? What's interesting to you? What advice would you give them to give you what you need to thrive?
Yes, hi again, Rose. I am curious about my data and what are you going to do with it? What does privacy look like? Because this is my life. And so just curious what will happen with that information. Is this sort of a Q&A or should I keep going on? Okay. Good, good. Happy to vent. Yes, and I think I'm curious about, I hear about all these different actors, but even what you brought up about a potential partnership, I'm just trying to figure out how to grow my crops, how to live within my community, and so I have just learned about smart farm systems. I'm curious how this information will be delivered to me. Is it going to continue to be learning about more platforms and solutions, or is there a way to get that information a bit more centralized?
Can I ask you why you don't go to Smart Farm's free training?
Free training? I didn't even know it existed. Yeah. Wow. Well, that would be great to know. And I'm part of my local SACO, but I haven't heard about it. And so, yeah, where can I learn about some of this? And I feel like I know everyone in my community, but no one seems to be talking about this. So I'd be happy to meet with whoever. I just don't know where to start either, I suppose.
Okay, shall we, Mercy, what's your perspective on all this? What do you have to say to these people?
Yeah, absolutely. Plus 100 to everything that Rose has said. And I'm sitting here as a young woman with access to technology, have been looking for the opportunities, but it seems the information isn't out there. Like, I feel like I already am connected to the community because of the service that I provided, so there's a level of trust. And also there's a level of understanding on how to communicate in the issues that are already existent. And then also just bearing in mind like digital access barriers, how Rose interacts is completely different from how I interact, but there's an opportunity to think of that as like a spectrum. So maybe it's not just looking at us, the women farmers, as a point of information, but actually as your partners and collaborators in how you can implement the solution. We're also suffering from the climate effect, but then, you know, when we come together, we can go far. But if you look at us as a risk point, we're not going to use your services. And then I think also it would be great for Next Gen to see us as, to back us in this point of like partnership. So really thinking about what we're looking for is ways to grow our income opportunities that we already have. We're already practicing different points of entrepreneurship, but we'd also like to have a holistic service that points to us about market opportunities, about, I know organic farming is quite big. Everyone wants to buy organic eggs. So maybe you could provide us with that opportunity of where we can find those market access. And I think because we are connected to WCC, which is really great, because it also gives us the space of knowing time is a big issue for us. Then how do we also make sure that, you know, people like myself, Mercy, who've got that exposure to digital services, are able to also share within the WCC, so that it's not just the burden of the WCC to organize, but they're also helping me to upskill and use my experience to communicate the knowledge that I also already have, but as long as the information is being shared publicly as well. So I'm not just a data point, I'm also your partner. So yeah.
Thank you so much. I hope that you guys have really enriched your understanding of women through this deep engagement. But I'd like to, I think there are 2 points. Number one is, you know, how do you think about what you do in relationship to what you've heard? And how do you think you can partner in relation to what you've heard? You know, I'd love to just really quickly, we only have a couple more minutes. So just each person, maybe if you can talk about what you've learned and what you can do and how can you partner to make things work.
Okay, so as Next Gen, I see that it's no use working in silos. There's a lot of opportunities for collaboration, and it should be a synergy, and it should be symbiotic, not just what are you getting from me, it's how can we help one another, especially the bank, where, you know, you believe that we know you need the data, but we also want to be mindful of what you're doing with our customers' data. And that is very important to us. We know we've tried in the past and seen that when you're giving this to the customers, they conditions are really tiny, and they cannot read all these things. So we need you to be as clear and straightforward as possible. So we're open to these collaborations, and we're happy to speak.
Yeah, just to add as Chris, yeah, I mean, we've been trying to work with the local bank, but they don't give us any attention. They say we're a new startup. We don't know what we're doing. We haven't been in operation for more than 3 years or so, and they just want us to, they just keep us at arm's length. So I'd reiterate the need for, mutual benefit. A good way is for us to give you some access to some of our data. You can track how the people also are operating with our solutions. And I think it's about time that you came up with new ways of analyzing enterprises such as us and collaborate and innovate together. When it comes to WSCC, we need to think together how we can work with women. I think smartphones has been an issue, and we need to figure out how to ensure that we get smartphones to these women's hands. And a collaboration with you, we could work together with the women within your circles, just to ensure that they get the necessary know-how and support that they require to become the best they can be with the smartphone. Thank you.
Yeah, let me just to add. So as a reliable commercial bank, this has been really helpful because we can see that NextGen is not our competition. They're actually someone that can support us and to grow our portfolio. And so I think the best thing that we can do is articulate what our needs in terms of data. I feel like as a bank, as a department, we are also trying to figure out what it is we want with this data. And so by clearly saying maybe we want the cash flows and not the nitty-gritty details of the women, it can help put you at ease on how we share this information and what we use for it. So I definitely think there's an opportunity there. And I also think that listening to the women, there are opportunities to reach out to them within some sort of formal or semi-formal groups. They are well connected. They are not as far off as we think they are. And so it's up to us in our departments to maybe push these agent bankings, reach out to women in ways that they need to be reached out to, maybe women representatives. And so I definitely think there's opportunity to partner and grow this. Maybe 21.
I think for 22, the main question is around why am I doing this? What's the end game? Is it just inclusion for inclusion's sake? What does it mean for the real economy, in terms of the participation of women? What are we changing in their lives? Or are we just saying that we've gone into a rural area, we're serving these women? Are we following the crowd because everyone else has been able to go there? So I think that's a critical question that needs to be asked in terms of impact, in terms of the motivation, in terms of looking at the entire ecosystem. Because we are looking at climate change, we just from COP27. How does that look like in the lives of women? And for rural poverty, in terms of enhancing livelihoods for the women that we are targeting to serve. I think those are the critical questions for me to look at.
Thank you so much. Okay, Edna, why don't you bring us home?
Great. So I'm going to tell you what I would do if I was Edna. So I'm based in rural Dolawado, and I'm getting really annoyed with Chris and Tony sat in Addis Ababa making decisions about the community where I'm working and living. And so I want to invite Chris and Tony through my connection in the capital. I want to figure out how to get them or representatives from them to Dolawado and to one of the WCC meetings so that you can meet with Rose and Mercy in person and we can have this conversation that we're having now. Because what WCC brings to this is I am the linchpin into the communities. You're not going to be able to meet with Rose and Mercy individually. But if you meet with people like WCC and if I bring other cooperatives together, we can really get this kind of conversation started.
Yeah, I think that's actually really good guidance for AgriFin as we think forward to ALE number 7 next year. That possibly that's something that we should do. what I've heard, which I wish that we had more time to discuss this with all of you, but we'll be looking at all the stickies and observations. But my takeaways from this conversation is there's a real data gap. We can't expect the cooperatives and women's cooperatives to suddenly digitize and be able to collect all of this and have it be perfect. There's a data gap that we have to address. So in our next panel, maybe that's something we can talk about. Where is the info? Women being blind in the marketplace and really wanting that strong footprint in the market. So how do we incorporate that? And then risk mitigation strategies. You're all dealing with risk. How can you partner to mitigate risk and share costs? As Tony 1 or Tony 2? I think you're Tony 1. I think as Tony 1 said, there has to be a business case. Doing this for what? So we have to mitigate risk. We have to figure out how to partner to lower the cost. So let's see if there was another thing. Fitting with women's time and finding women where they are. Not all marketing strategies are the same, and not all women are the same. So we're talking about different segments. We're talking about different ways to find them where they are. So you guys, thank you so much. We really appreciate Rose, Mercy, Chris, Tony, Edna, and all your contributions at the table. And I will hand over the microphone to Dolapo now for our expert panel.
Yay, thank you, Lisa. All right, I think in the interest of time, thank you, debaters. In the interest of time, we're just going to jump right into it. And I'm going to call on our panel. We have a very, very interesting, an exciting panel lineup. So I'd just like to call everybody up. Amani, if you could please come up. I don't know, at what point do I actually introduce them? As you're coming up or when you're up here? Sorry? Introduce yourselves, perfect. So we have Amani, please come up. Michael, please come up. Renee, please come up. And Nikhil. Please, a round of applause for all of them. All right. My name is Dolakbo Olusomoku. I'm the Agrifin Program Engagement Consultant based in Nigeria. So I oversee our work, working very closely with our Kenya team. And I will just pass the mic to each panelist to introduce themselves quickly before we go into conversations. Okay, we'll start with Nikhil.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. Nikhil this side. I'm representing Dehat. Dehat is a agri-tech company in India which provides seed-to-market solutions to the farmers and serving around 1.5 million farmers in India. So look forward to this conversation.
Hi, everyone. My name is Amani Mbali, and I'm a senior program officer at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. I work with the financial inclusion team, and I support our work in East Africa. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Renee Chauberov, and I would like to represent here We Agree, which is a ag platform for agriculture value chain in Côte d'Ivoire. And I will talk from that perspective. We are very much focusing not only on agriculture value chain, but also on women in agriculture value chain.
Good morning. I'm Mike Ombaka. Just transitioned from FSD Kenya to ZEPRI. ZEPRI is a Comesa region reinsurance company working on our Horn of Africa climate resilience project that tries to use the insurance and saving solutions as resilience mechanisms, among other micro-insurance solutions. Thank you.
Thank you all. It's a pleasure to be sat in the middle of you all. So we'll just take the conversation forward, building up on the interesting debate that we've just had. And my first question would be, so just listening to the conversations, listening to the responses, questions, what would you say is coming out very strongly and dominantly for each of you? I'll start with Amani, since you're next to me.
Thank you. I think what I really drew from the discussion on the stage a moment ago was these individuals, these stakeholders, Mercy, Edna, Tony, etc., have the potential to become an ecosystem, right? It's a dormant potential to really ignite, I think, opportunities to serve everyone's interests. So the interests of the cooperatives, the interests of the technology firm, the interests of the bank. Everyone, if they work together, actually could unlock potential. And so I would call it a dormant ecosystem. I guess I'm careful with the word ecosystem because ecosystem implies it's alive, but there's potential for an ecosystem.
Thanks, Amani. Okay, and I'm going to ask the same question to Michael. What came out for you? What was dominant? What were you hearing? What made your ears tingle as you listened to the discussions?
Yeah, something related to what Aman mentioned. I realized that the data sharing is a sticky issue. Yeah, and it's a survival strategy for, especially not the farmer, but the other institutions. Yeah, what happens if I share my data with you? And so the whole thinking of how data would be shared in a synergetic way, I saw that lacking. It became the main competitive edge among them.
And I think I'm going to have Renee actually respond to that because I feel like you're in the middle as a cooperative and you're almost, you're getting the different perspectives and the different angles. So I think based on even what Michael said, I'd like to hear your thoughts around this data sharing sensitivity, in your experience, how that has played out working with women. I'm just curious to hear your thoughts around that.
Well, actually, it's not so much data at this stage in West Africa that has been the main issue or the main challenge. It is really to get the ecosystem recognized that it's an ecosystem and recognize that they need each other, because the vast majority of them think that they are more competitors than really part of partners and part of an ecosystem, and making them recognize that they have more to gain by working with each other is more of the issue right now.
So that now seems to be the missing link. I'm hearing the partnerships and the lack of collaboration, lack of partnerships. But I feel like now there are a lot of conversations around partnerships, but it seems like we're just still not getting it right, because there's the perspective is more as a competitor. The reasons why we can't work together are more pronounced than the reasons why we can work together. So I'll move on to Nikhil to hear, from your experience in DHAT, how have you been able to work across those challenges?
Sure. So I would put these, in case of thematic areas where it is important that we cater to certain goals, like be it the inclusion of gender, and that calls for collaboration. But if I have to use, the methodology which we have seen in the real life example, is that first is create, second is converge, and third is, I would say, collaborate. In terms of creation of a mindset, first of all, as an organization, as a leader, that, okay, you are going to get into it, and you may require to share data to somebody. You may require to help them with a higher margin in terms of inputs. So, and inside the organization also, for you to flow that, I would say, complete theme, you need to create a kind of, proper centric approach, that why and how it is going to yield larger business and why this thing to happen. So that is where it start. Coming to the second part, and I'm just come to the third part, collaboration, that what does it require to be collaborating better. Second part is convergence, in the sense that an organization needs to figure out that for achieving this theme, how do he converge it with the regular business? Because in a kind of startup environment which is always working in a constraint, be it the constraint of resources, in terms of money, in terms of bandwidth, in terms of network. It is important that we converge our thoughts, that if I had to include gender, how it is going to stitch with our own business. At Dehat, we stitched with our insurance, that we will give insurance with the wheat farmers. Whoever buying wheat seeds will get them insurance. That's one. We stitch with our cattle feed. Since we have cattle feed, we have vet services. So we stitch that, okay, we will bring this along with cattle feed and name it as a Nari Shakti program, which in English means women power. So that is where we converge. Now the third part, when you converge things, you understand that, okay, what are the missing gaps which I am not having currently? And where do I need to collaborate? The first step towards collaboration would always be having a very clear-cut idea about what do you want to collaborate for, what you have to give them to, and what are your expectations, very specific. Being specific, so I have seen that across all the conversation, wherever we are very much specific about what we are ready to give, what we want, things happen. And then comes to the step of collaboration. Again, a real-time example that Delberg took a stage of providing us the technical assistance, of doing the HCD surveys on the ground. While we understood that we don't have a women reseller channel, but there's a company, Frontier Market. We knew that, okay, we are going to train those people. So we have started the conversation under which we are training those Nari Sakhis, that, the women farm people who works with the women farmers. We have been now providing them products that we have told the company that you don't need to worry about the inputs which your farmer wants. You tell us what you want. You want a certain agrochemical, you want pesticide, you want fertilizers, you want seeds, we will provide you. And then when they said that, okay, we want that women to be having a substantial income coming, we would say that, okay, we will take that margin effort into increasing a certain margin if it goes to creating an incentivizer scheme. So when we did so, we seen that the yielding results. When it comes to women cooperatives or the data, currently we are into discussion with one of the government counterpart and the cooperative that this is what we are trying to do. We are not seeking for any primary data, but if you want to bundle yourself, that for every women farmer taking a loan, do you want them that we provide them wheat seeds along with insurance? Do you want it or not? And definitely that's what you say, the deal which nobody can reject. That because they are having a bundled solution at the doorstep. So this is where I would say collaboration is going to yield, being very much specific.
Yeah.
But that cannot be achieved starting from the collaboration. It has to first come from creation of the mindset. Second is converging with your regular business, stitching the theme all together. And third is collaborating. Yeah.
Thanks, Nihil. I really like that. Creation, convergence, collaboration. I think one thing that came across strongly from what you said was just being able to identify the value propositions across board, because if the different entities and organizations are able to articulate what the value proposition is for every stakeholder, then it becomes an easier conversation. So I think that's coming out very clearly. And that seems to be coming out as the missing piece. I don't know if there's any other missing piece I've heard a bit of regulation come up in what you said. Well, government, I don't know. Is there any sort of missing piece that maybe you also want to highlight? We've talked about partnerships. Anything else that you feel is missing from these conversations? Any takers? Michael, you look like.
Okay, she can go first.
Yes, I think the other missing piece is the perception of why the women market is so desirable. Because I don't think that for the vast majority of players in that ecosystem, except for maybe development workers, women is really perceived as such a desirable market. And if they don't see that women is a desirable market, they won't make very much effort to look for that market, go out of their way for that. So I think we need to also create that kind of information that people can see that they want to get there.
to just double click on that, sorry, I would say that to emphasize more, it is very much important to get it awareness being done that in order, why do you have to include women into your business? And helping a business understand this thing in the business term is really, really important. For a business, like for us, where it worked that if we want to scale in the rural India, we want to have a rural brand, and you cannot build a rural brand without being a brand for the family. And when it happens, you have to stitch your solutions around women too. So, and with the case studies where you shared Chris 3, again the question was that you have such a large target market, why to choose a women? So we need to answer, and there should be much more, I would say, publications, research, which support this hypothesis that targeting women get you less cost intensive, more depth, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, so I was going to add, I see the coordination lacking. Yeah, for these players to come together, the women cooperative, the fintechs, the banks, and even the farmers, the aspiration, they are converging in terms of common needs that they want to serve. But I think what is happening, each is approaching the other individually. And I see coordination two-way. One, the person who leads through the processes he has mentioned, that requires even co-creation together is a whole coordination function. But also I see an infrastructure, the design, for instance, the platform design, whether it's the fintechs or it's the bank, as the infrastructure is being designed, it needs to be designed to coordinate this function. For instance, one thing that I keep coming all in the discussion was like the inputs, for instance, input financing. And you could track and see there's input financing to the farmer. The women cooperative would want to buy the inputs possibly in bulk, and the bank would want to finance the same. And I think the infrastructure that has to be built has to think what's the most efficient way to get the banks participating in that, maybe also financing for those inputs. And of course, the cooperative will be the enabler to get the inputs to those. But not to say the fintech also would be still have a space to play in that input financing. So and these are different platforms, assuming even the cooperative has its own, whether it's Excel or physical books, they have their own infrastructure. So I see the infrastructure and the non-infrastructure coordination lacking.
Thank you. So one other thing I'd like to add, and I think we shouldn't overlook this, is that just based on the case studies and discussions we had, I think really successful private sector enterprises that are seeking to target women sincerely are going to have to do business a little bit differently. And that is something that they need to retool and rethink. And this kind of goes back to what my sister was saying about thinking about seeing women as change agents, seeing women as the potential in women. But it requires kind of a change in strategy. It requires a change in tactics. It requires a change in who is leading the institution, who are the managers inside the institutions. Are they women? It requires thinking about who's representing the institution in the field. Are they women agents? Are they men agents? Are they old agents? Are they young? So on and so forth. It really does require some level of transformation internally to that institution so that they can have an external impact in this demographic. Thank you.
And so I'm going to hinge on that, Amani. So how do you where do you think that starts from? I know you're saying it starts from the institutions. Would you say donors should take a lead on this? Would you say, because how do you coordinate? I mean, there's so many individual organizations, right? DHAT is here. They figured it out and they're like, okay, this is a strategy we need to pursue. Women need to be at the center. But how do we, looking at the entire ecosystem, how do we drive this effort?
So the thing that comes to my mind is incentives. How do we change incentives of market actors to serve women? Yes, there's a role for foundations, even governments, to change the incentive, right? At the Gates Foundation, we do it by curating and strategizing and saying, this is the kind of programs we want to fund, right? These programs should be supporting women in agriculture, women MSMEs, women in East Africa, et cetera, right? That's an incentive for firms to come to us and say, we have programs that can meet that need. These incentives also create guarantees. These incentives can de-risk going into markets that serve women. So I think the answer to that begins with incentives. Sometimes we're lucky, we have a leader that's just woke. Sometimes that happens, but other times we need to look for those market incentives. And I think that there is a role for the state to play in that, to make it kind of a norm. Like, businesses should serve women. This is normal. This is not an exception. This does not make you a gender champion. This makes you smart, right, as an entrepreneur. So I think we need to think about that.
Thank you so much. We are running out of time, so I feel like at this point I could go on and on, but I just looked at my watch. So I think in terms of just bringing this to a close, it'd be interesting to hear from everyone on the panel, just pivoting from this experience and looking forward now, what's the rallying call? Where do we go from here? And it'd be good to obviously speak from your different seats and offices based on the work that you're doing. And I think I'll start from Renee.
Well, you will be a little bit surprised that for wrapping, I will go to tiny little details, but I feel that these details are very important for opening the future, at least in West Africa. The two things that I've heard from this morning that seems so important is for women to access to smartphones. I think this is very, you will think it's very basics, but it is not, because the vast majority of rural women do not have smartphone, and I won't want only the husband to be giving a smartphone to the women. I wonder why we cannot, as banks or as platforms, provide access to smartphone on leasing or mini credit basis, as women are starting to save. I think this is a very good way of getting her being independent by her own effort. And the second is agents. I've heard a lot about agents. Everyone wants to have agents, and we are all developing strategies to have agents. One thing that I know from our experiences in West Africa is that if you have women agents, you can really make a huge difference. For the first season, we had 20% of women rural producers that have been engaged. And because we have hired women agents, we jumped from 20% to 35% in just 1 year. So I think that women agents are really, really important. And this is also a way of creating job opportunities for young women in the rural areas.
Yeah, good. So for me, I would mention a challenge that has been thrown to us by our partners and specifically the government. The program we are doing is called Drive. In the Horn of Africa, I mentioned the insurance, the saving incentives, seeing how people can build resilience. And how we are approaching it, we're saying there's a big role for a platform. So moving from being a typical insurance where we take the risk and wait and pay back or not pay, where we're now moving into a space of doing a platform that de-risks and coordinates many functions that look like outside our normal business. So for instance, we've been asked to think through how finance, which insurance is part of finance, our savings, which is part of finance, our access to market by the pastoralists. So we're working with one of the largest slaughterhouse that is owned by the government to rethink the model of how market to access should look like, as well as partnering with the people who deliver the capital, the banks. So it's a huge challenge. And I think, as Aman is saying, the whole ecosystem, we're trying to see what ecosystem should be in-house and what should we leverage on others for efficiency.
Yeah, I think the thing I would like us to not forget, because we believe so much in technology, is the human touch and human contact. These, the cultures in which we are working, the societies in which we are working, are not digitally, they're not digital natives per se, right? And so I think it is important that we not underestimate the importance of person to person, that there is a digital solution, but it is backed up, it is supported. In fact, the digital solution is supporting a person dealing with a client. The other piece I wanted to mention is skills. Skills are really, really important for women. I think that skills training, sometimes we call it in financial spaces digital literacy or digital financial literacies, but skills writ large, I think, are really important. And connecting women to markets, services, and bundling those services together, right? So in that seamless kind of, this showed up just in time for when I needed it, right? And understanding her livelihoods and her business cycles. I think all those pieces are necessary. Unfortunately, it's not simple. It's not black and white. It's not one thing that can resolve everything. So just keeping in mind that there is complexity, but human interaction and support, I think, is also really important. Thanks.
Yeah, and the good part about, coming to the last point is that most of the people have just mentioned. So I have just one thing to add: execution of the things which is being mentioned. Be it providing, having the right technology with a human touch, having the right infrastructure and set partners to work with, having incentive programs being figured out. I'm sorry, I'm doing your work.
Thank you. I was about to thank you.
Having an access to smartphones, which is a wonderful thing, and definitely is something with the geographies which I'm talking about, be it Asia and Africa. This is having a very large potential and a very big weapon which is going to drive the gender inclusion is that financial schemes which provides women an access to a smartphone. They may be incentivized because their children are looking for it. With the COVID, we have seen that most of the learnings coming to the smartphone. So I would say the surroundings are perfect currently to have this thing massively scaled up. Then comes obviously the agents, which is being mentioned. It is very much important to, if we have to include a gender, we need to ensure that they are included onto every aspect. And one of the aspects is earning by working into it. Just like a male counterpart earns by aggregating the demand and supply, a women counterpart should be able to do the same as well. Insurance is a very important thing, and given if you talk about agriculture, there's a climate resilient and skill development. So I would say that my takeaways on all those things is that for all of us, we do it small, we do it large, at whichever scale we do it, we have to do it. So execution is the key. As a most important part in this sector, because they are problem statements, they are solutions, they are partners, enough partners to collaborate. But when it comes to execution, when the rubber hits the road, that's the time we feel the burn, and that's the time we need to be resilient by ourselves. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Nihil. I owe you coffee after this. I'll take you to the coffee stand for free coffee. Thank you very much. But thank you all for your contributions on the panel. This has been very rich discussions, and really looking forward to actually catching up beyond this session as we go into the coffee break and subsequent sessions throughout the rest of the day. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.